heater. They got the iron, well I got the steamer. I bring the fire, but you never seen her. I testify, I don't need a subpoena. They want my soul, better go to Korea. I love my dog just like I'm Peter. Gotta protect him. I made the call up, but just like I'm rapping. I know we left here, now we back together. But like I said, it's better now. They got the iron, well I got the steamer. What's happening? I'ma need y'all quit asking when. Me and my wife gonna have some kids. Right now we just practicing. Teacher said quit rapping, man. That gon' hurt my average. I said thank God I ain't average. Yeah, I'm a bright young man. Kill the GPA and the BPM. Look, we on. So say what you say, cause that's A with Lecrae. From the A train to the A, I'm coming in hot. I don't do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot a shot. I'm coming in. See him still sleeping, so I had to shake him up. I kept it too real. I wasn't faking up. My real life was a headline. Your real life got a deadline. My timeline was a hashtag. Your timeline just a hate crime. Coming in hot, feeling like Pac. Back in 94 when he took 5 shots. Too much drive to ride your wave. Ditch my top, then I'm off that lot. Black on black on black on black on black on black on black. You don't have to burn a rap to get them racks on racks. Uber poolers trying to catch my vibe and find my way. Yeah, I know I'm ratchet, but I'm really safe. Hot sauce dripping. Everybody wants to start dipping. First nobody want to listen. Now everybody pay attention. Now everybody pay a fee. Even Trump got to take a knee. When the horn blow, y'all gon' see. Make the wall fall down like I don't do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot the shot. I'm coming in hot. Coming in hot. Coming in hot. Shoot that shot. Shoot that shot. Shoot, why not? Why not? Ain't no big. Ain't no big. Feel like Pac. We can't lose. We can't stop. We can't stop. Yeah, coming in hot. Coming in hot. Coming in hot. Shoot that shot. Hey, why not? Hey, why not? Hey, watch out.
I'm finna call shit. Yeah, you know I did it for the culture. 2020 vision, one focus. Write me down, ooh, dodging all the bogus. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. I've been in my zone, I ain't worried about a thing. I'm just trying to shine with the ultra light beam. I done told the y'all, he picked up on first ring. Turn my music up, I need your attention, please. And they called out, Alison told him, open the budget. Since I'm loving independent money on all of my duckies. Minor on the road, coming straight out the oven. I came out the bottom, so I had to use my knife. If your ego, lose some weight, so your memory I tight. I've been whipping up the blessing to my shoulder, out of socket. That's all I got. I don't know what you doing, but it's coming. Ooh, I'm finna call shit. Yeah, you know I did it for the culture. 2020 vision, one focus. Write me down, ooh, dodging all the bogus. Ooh, that's clean. 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 Running things. Ooh, that's track. Banging verses are like dope. Ooh, that's crack. If you hanging, you a dog. You just quack. I am a man with a wife and 2 kids, so they wasting my time. I ain't into that. I ain't got patience to go back and forth with it. It's all on the internet. I hit the road where you know I be moving. When I get home, I break bread like a million. Y'all out of capping and get some influence. Like I ain't the one that control it, the truest. Yeah, the truth. I ain't home beef on the rappers. I'm really what's starting them. Yeah, but they come out with models on catch you. Don't see me losing. Don't see me losing. Y'all like to chase that silver and looking like Judas. Man, they done broke up the game and I'm trying to do it. Ooh, I'm finna call shit. focus. Write me down, ooh, dodging all the bogus. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean. Ooh, that's clean.
Yeah, I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Pray hard and then I work and that's for sure. I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Yeah, pray hard and then I work and that's for sure. Ay. Cause always told me work for what I want. Yeah, always did when they told me that I want. Yeah, so I don't understand this world till my parents money spoiled rich. I've been on my own, kick it, I'm gon' have the world grip. Ayy, I just shut my head and then I work and then I pray. Satan tryna get me on my game, but he might pray. Always wanted to be more, I'm feeling like I'm Ray. I step in super ace and now I'm chillin' with the grays. Diligent, I'm a rocket. Reading J's like I'm hard and I'm Chris Breezy, I'm poppin'. No more games, I'm locking. I say the planet, I'm on it. Going for my dreams, yeah, I'm on the ultra beam. I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Pray hard and then I work and that's for sure. I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Pray hard and then I work and that's for sure. Love, I don't get tired of the winning. Galatians 6:9, get used to my grinning. I ain't out here playing tennis either with it or against it. Doing pushes why I got all these lanes extra chillin'. When I came to the side, it was clear to me that these dudes ain't really who they pretend to be. Yo, never understood why artists don't grind hard. Ayy, then it came to me, they been eating caviar. Ayy, never perform with 4 people in the crowd. They never had to worry about dudes messing with the sound. Yeah, I bet they never had their teens sleeping on the floor, skipping leg day. But they never even got sore. Ayy, but they first tour was a worldwide tour. Ayy, but they biggest worry was what type of girl tour. I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Pray hard and then I work and that's for sure. I'ma get it, that's for sure. I envision it, then I go. I don't never look back on the go. Pray hard and then I work and that's for sure.
Hey people, good afternoon. Hope you're all doing well this Saturday. If you can, if possible, please put your cameras on, your videos on. We're super excited for today because we've got the amazing Alison, who's an author of the Freelancer Bible. But I'm just going to introduce myself, introduce the organization, and also introduce our Empowerment Day. So this is obviously streaming live on YouTube. So hey everybody, my name is Oyin Kosola Adebayo is my full name. I am the founder and CEO of Neo Enterprise. So Neo Enterprise, we're an organization that is dedicated to economically empowering Black women through innovative tools. So we run boot camps, tech boot camps, and also hair and beauty academies to ensure that Black women are trained, upskilled, and also placed in organizations or to pursue a sustainable entrepreneurship journey. So, if you want to do that, is the best person to kind of talk to today. So we're super excited to have her on. So what is the Black Disruptor XR Bootcamp? So the Black Disruptor XR Bootcamp is one of our 4 boot camps that we run. We run one called the Black Coder Bootcamp, which is specifically for software developers. We run one for XR ladies. So most of the ladies are here today. And essentially it's a boot camp for Black women and by Black women to essentially get there's about 18 to 19 of ladies to be trained to become Unity developers. So it's a part-time 16-week course that runs 3 evenings a week. It's really, really cool bootcamp, and at the end, people will be able to produce gaming apps and whatnot. So excited today. So this would not have been able to happen without the support and the funding of the West Midlands Combined Authority, who are our main sponsors. They're really passionate about making sure that we gain digital skills and great jobs alongside it. So all of the women on the bootcamp would get support to get into jobs, as well as get into pursue an entrepreneurship journey if that's what they would like. I've mentioned about Neo Enterprise, but Taran 3D is our main delivery partner, which is run by Taran Singh. Taran 3D is a 3D and VR agency. They specialize in essentially creating virtual experiences for customers and also teaching as well. So all of the women here wouldn't be able to get their training without the help of Taran 3D. So thank you to Taran 3D for being our delivery partner. So what is an empowerment day? So when I started kind of phrasing this course, I realized that I didn't want to just get Black women to be trained, but I also wanted to ensure that we had the inspiration, we had all of the support we need through role models in the industry, and also people who are trailblazers in the industry to come and speak to our cohort, just to understand how to actually navigate this space. So it's an opportunity for everybody to ask questions and also to learn from experts in their field. So without further ado, I want to introduce Alison. So Alison Grade is the author of the Freelance Bible. She described her key skill as transforming creative ideas into a business reality. So she accomplishes this with the film she produces. So she's a film producer, the creative entrepreneurs she mentors, the SMEs and the freelancers that she advises in her Penguin published book, The Freelance Bible. Alison has a unique skill set in that she has a formal academic training in an MBA and has worked at senior level in many media companies. She's an entrepreneur who has established several businesses and is a Nesta accredited creative enterprise trainer and mentor. She brings her passion, knowledge, and experience with her in all the work she does. So can we just give a warm welcome to Alison? So Alison, over to you.
Ian, thank you so much. Guys, it is absolutely fantastic to be here with you today. And I am going to talk to you about how to be a great freelancer. So I have had a major tech upgrade as well. So I am hoping that this is all going to work really well for you. So you should be able to see my slides and see me in the corner. And it means that I don't have to do a screen share. So if I'm really small on your screen, just pop on speaker view, and every time I'm talking, you'll get me big screen. I hope that's working. Do I get some thumbs up that you can all see and hear me? Marvelous, fantastic. So I probably don't really need to do much of an introduction here after all of that. But as Oyen says, I'm a freelancer, I have a portfolio career, and I've done a whole range of things. And really, the book, I never thought I was going to write a book. I never thought I was particularly good at English. I just worked as a freelancer for most of my career. That's how you work in film and TV. And more recently, 15 years or so ago, I did an MBA. And that led me on a new journey to starting my own business. My first big business was a motorbike training school where we specialized in teaching women how to ride motorbikes. And from there, I then moved up to the Midlands. I started working back in film and TV, had kids, and just looked at what could I do. And that was when all the sort of things that I'd done in my career had joined up, because in film and TV production, I'd been the production manager, the organizer, that person who someone says, we've got this idea for a show, how do we make it happen? And I'd have to work out how long it would take, what the budget would be. And so I was already transforming business ideas creative ideas into a business reality. And then from there, I realized that actually having run a business, that was the same thing. And so with the MBA training, I put all of that together. And that's really where my work fits now, is really working with different clients in different ways to transform their ideas and bring them to life. And the book is really part of that story and that journey, because I saw an opportunity that there wasn't knowledge about how to be a great freelancer out there and available. There was lots of technical knowledge for people in creative industries, how to become a visual artist, how to become a filmmaker, how to do this, all those technical skills. But there wasn't that strong wrapper of well, actually, how do I put that into action? How do I turn this thing that I want to do into a real career? And that's what I'm talking to you guys about today, is how I see that working. And it is, the skeleton of my book. And a key part of what I talk about is, why do clients work with me? Why me? Why do clients work with me? And as I said, it's about transforming creative ideas into a business reality. And the interesting thing when we start to unpick that is that I don't do that in the same way with every client, but there's a common thread. So when I write my book, it's transforming my idea into a reality. When I'm running a webinar or a workshop, it's about helping you. I think about, well, this is your idea. How do I transform that into a reality? When I work with consulting clients, when I work with Create Central, people like that, then I'm doing a strategic project, helping them understand how they can transform some of their strategy into a business reality. So all of these different ways that I work, people come to me because that's what I do. But actually how I do it can be different. And that's quite an important thing to think about when we start to think about who we might work with and what we might do, actually understanding those common threads that we bring. So today's session is all about how to be a great freelancer. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start with thinking about, well, actually, what's the difference between employment and freelancing? And I think there's a key part of that is straightforward income. How are we paid? Well, if we're an employee, then it's very much we're paid regularly through bank transfer. The company deducts all of our taxes, our income tax, our national insurance, and we just get our spending money, if you like. Whereas when we're freelance, we're invoicing our service for our services. So we're paid once we've submitted an invoice and the company's paid. But we're also paid with all the taxes. So we're responsible for getting that information to HMRC. And this session today is very much about how to be a great freelancer, how to build your freelancing. The tax piece is important, but that's not going to get you more work. So there is information on that, but it's not the focus of today's session. The other part of it is actually, well, what are our responsibilities? Well, we're responsible for providing our own equipment. I don't ask a plumber to come to my house to fix the boiler. And then when the plumber arrives and they say, hi, I'm the plumber, I'm here to fix the boiler. Could you show me where your tools are? We expect them to come with the tools. It's the same when we're freelancing. We expect people to come with the tools. And equally, we are responsible. We've got, we have to organize our own pensions. We may not get paid if we're taking days out. Depends on, some sectors do pay a little bit of holiday pay, but it's very varied. And so the general rule of thumb is no work, no pay. But where it gets fun and interesting is that actually, as a freelancer, we can choose our own hours. We are autonomous. We can plan our own schedule. Now, of course, I've got dates in the diary. I've got to be here today for this session. But equally, nobody says to me when I have to plan for it, how I get organized for it, what that looks like. I can organize my own diary to suit me. And the most important thing about freelancing is we have to get our head around the idea that actually it's up to us to source the work that we do. So we have to find work for us. When we're an employee, the company finds us work to do. It's their responsibility. And that for me is really that key distinction, because I see lots of freelancers, particularly in film and TV, starting out, where actually when you look at how they're paid, how it works, they look pretty much like an employee all the way down the list. They look like an employee. They're paid regularly. The company sorts out their taxes. They get a bit of paid holiday. Company provides the equipment, all of those things. But actually, it's a fixed term contract. It has a start date, and importantly, it has an end date. So it might be a 6-week, might be 12-week, might be 6 months, might even be 12 months. But at the end of that contract, that's it. And then that person has to find work for them to do. So even if you're paid through the payroll, if it's a fixed term contract, we want to think in that freelance mindset of actually, there's no guarantees there's work for me beyond the end of that contract. So I need to find work for me to do. And that's what this session is about. So let's start by asking ourselves the question, why do companies hire freelancers? And I think there's 2 reasons why companies hire freelancers. Either they need specialist skills in their business, and that's what you guys are here learning on this bootcamp, is those specialist skills that companies need, or you're going in to add capacity. So why is this important? It's important because actually it affects the narrative of how we talk to potential clients. So if I'm going in, for example, take a simple example. So if I'm going in to run social media campaigns for clients, that's what I'm planning to do. I might go to one client who I'm offering specialist skills to. They're a brand. They don't have anybody in-house running their social media. They don't even know, is it valuable to me, whatever. So I might have to go in and explain to them how social media can have an impact, make a difference to their business. So I've got to take them on that learning journey about why social media is important, and then why I'm the right person to do that. Whereas if I'm going in with those same skills to add capacity, maybe in an agency that delivers social media campaigns for businesses, they already know why social media is important. They're already bought into that. They're an agency, that's what they deliver. They're then looking specifically about my skills and am I the right match? Do I have the right experience to deliver for them? So I talk to them in a different way. So when we're thinking about who we're going to talk to, understand where our client is at on the journey. And it can be quite, we can feel like we're not doing ourselves a good service when we go in and we talk to a brand that isn't using our services, because we think, well, actually, this is really simple. Why am I explaining all the real basics? I'm not adding value. I've got much more experience than this. This can't be worth anything to my client. Well, actually, it is, because we've got to take them on that journey. So we've got to understand where our client's at. We go and meet them when we take them on that journey. So that's sort of the thinking. But when we're thinking about freelancing, it's not enough for us to just work in our freelancing. Great freelancers work on their freelancing. So how do we do that? Well, working in our freelancing is all about the different projects we're working on, the plates we're spinning, all those projects in the pipeline, and they often take priority because they're what pay the bills after all. But actually what makes us a great freelancer is working on our freelancing, wearing all those different hats. And that's taking on those different roles. Just like if we were in a company, we've got to be the CEO of our freelance career. We've got to be the finance director. We've got to go and send out the invoices, make sure they're followed up, make sure they're paid. We've got to do that marketing and sales piece. And we've got to organize our time. If we work on lots of projects at the same time, then we've got to plan our time. And for me, that successful freelancer psyche is imagining yourself on top of that three-legged stool. And, those three legs, that stool is only in balance when those three legs are bearing equal weight. And what do those legs represent? They represent your skills, your ability to do the work, your financial drive, and then your desires, your passion to get your message out there. And why are those three things the key legs of the stool for me? Well, let's think about it. If you take away skills, you can't deliver for your clients. The stool falls over. If you take away that financial drive, then the stool falls over. You don't have a sustainable career. You've got a hobby. You're not earning the living as a freelancer. And if you take away desires, the stool falls over because nobody knows you're out there and you don't have any clients in the pipeline. And so for me, it's those three legs of the stool that bringing those three things together help you to be the best freelancer that you can be. So now I'm going to take you through those different tactics for those three legs. But just opening up, is there any questions? Anyone want to comment? Anyone got anything they want to ask now? I can see a few questions in the chat. Nice to see everybody. And we're making sense. Yes, I'm making sense. Yes. Good stuff. Excellent.
Alison, can you hear me?
Yes.
Taryn.
Hi, Taryn.
Yeah, hi, how you doing? Yeah, that's really brilliant information. Yeah, I'm loving it all. There's one question I had is the ladies on our course, they're learning VR skills, so they're learning this really new technology and new skills. How would they start out? Like, a lot of the questions that we get is, how would we start being a freelance? How would we approach someone? What does it look like? And how do we access these opportunities?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. And I think understanding, I think there's two parts to that. One part is what I'm going to cover actually through the session in terms of understanding our skills, understanding how the money works, how we unlock our value, and then reaching out to people. But I think particularly, what I really pick up on your question is that sense of new technology, new things. So that absolutely smacks of, I've got these specialist skills, I've got this specialist knowledge. I'm talking to people who don't know how what I do works, why it works, and that kind of thing. And if you like, if I go back to the early 2000s, I was working with a colleague, who was selling wanted to make videos for companies' websites, particularly educational establishments. And people didn't really have much video. The internet wasn't strong enough to run it all. We didn't have the bandwidth. And so we actually spent more time explaining to people what video could do, how it could work, why video was important, rather than actually who we were as a company and what we could offer. Because actually that was what the journey, that's where the clients were at. They didn't have any knowledge. They didn't know what it could do. They didn't know why it added value. They didn't know what it was important. So I think in answer to your question, Karen, when you're thinking about, okay, why would people buy from me and everything? We've got to take people on that journey to understanding the value and the impact for their business of this new technology and hold their hands through that. So if we're experts in that, we've spent so much time thinking about all of this. We know it inside out, but actually sometimes we have to park that and go, well, where's my client at? And lead them along that journey. So I think some of that is a really important framing for this. So Taryn, thank you for that question.
There's another question. Actually, I have two questions, and one from
Go for it.
So Fisaya has asked, I was wondering how easy it is to delegate work to other freelancers, and what advice would you give to delegate? So I'll allow you to answer that, and I'll ask the second one.
Cool. So, I think for me, it's about capacity and skills. So thinking about, well, do I have the capacity to do this? Where do I add the most value? And so I work with a lot of freelancers, and it's about, for me, pricing my time. So I have a freelancer who works with me, who does a lot of project management, handles my diary, because me running my diary takes up a lot of my time and is something I can delegate. So it's understanding that, or I'll collaborate with people. So I pitch for training courses and people come in with their specialist knowledge. So I'm talking to someone who's a line producer at the moment for children's TV, and he wants to run some training courses, and together we can do this. I can't do it by myself because I don't have his detailed knowledge of line producing in children's TV. He can't do it without me because he doesn't know how to run these training courses and how that works. So different ways to collaborate, but it's about understanding where the partnership makes one and one make three, or you can be more productive because someone else is doing other things. So I hope that answers. What's your other question, Owen?
Yes, that was really great. I think just what I got from that was know what your value is, what you bring most value in. My next question was, a lot of the ladies in our boot camp are just starting out in the XR space. Will probably require a little bit more experience, in my opinion, after the boot camp to feel confident in the value that they bring. What advice would you give for junior people or people who are just breaking into an industry who want to become freelancers?
Yeah, so I think we're going to come to quite a bit of this because there's a whole section on value and understanding your value. But I think one of the things that comes up, particularly when people are starting out with a new skill, is that actually those first clients that we get will be the sort of clients who like us because our pricing isn't too high, and because we're keen and hungry and we want to get our portfolio. And then we look at them and we think, oh, we're never going to be able to charge more. They're never going to pay more. They haven't got those sort of budgets. And actually, I think there's an acknowledgement that, possibly quite a lot of those early clients, as we gain more experience, we want to put our prices up, we will probably lose them because they will take on the next cohort of people that are looking to build their portfolios, get that experience. And so I think there's an understanding that as we gain experience, not all of our clients will grow with us, but actually each time we move up, we get on to bigger and bolder projects. So I think it's understanding that and not and knowing when to cling on to those clients and keep going, and which ones you can grow with and which ones you will naturally move on from as you get that experience. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool. So I'm going to go back to the slides now. I'm loving my little buttons here. Here we go. I'm back in the corner. I won't mess around and move myself around the screen, much as it's very tempting to. So let's think about our skills, because this is where the questions are starting from. When we're freelance, there's two parts to skills. It's about knowing our mindset and how we feel about freelancing, but also starting to understand, this question's coming up already, the value that we bring to customers. So let's start with the mindset piece, because it is about being in balance, because we've got to find that place where we can feel secure in insecurity, and that's different for all of us. So starting to recognize, actually, what does that look like for me? Those cycles of feast and famine, what does that look like? How do I manage that? And that's where we want to think about those different hats. Well, actually, if we're worried about those famine periods, how do we keep the marketing, keep those conversations going whilst we're busy on another project? Or are we happy to go, when I worked in film and TV production, I might be really busy on a production, might be happy to have 2 or 3 weeks quiet before I start looking for the next project. But you've got to know what that looks like for you, that risk profile. How long can you afford to go from the breaks between projects? And if we know about that, we can start to shape the type of work that might work for us. What does our work-life balance look like? How many hours in the week can we work? Are we available to work? How do we build that in? Once we understand that, and knowing that, and the great thing about Freelancer, it's okay to say no. If a client comes to me and I don't want to do the work, or I don't have capacity, I can say no. I can't always say no to a boss, but I can say no to potential work, because it's a business transaction. I like to do it with a smile on my face. I like to say, well, I'm a bit too busy at the moment, or I'm not quite the right person. Have you thought about this person, so that I'm helping that person out, so they'll come back to me? But it is okay to say no, because we have to look out for ourselves. We don't have a boss, have anyone looking out for us. We've got to look out for ourselves. So we want to think of ourselves sitting on top of that stool, those 3 legs, bearing equal weight, with a smile on our face, looking out for ourselves. And then, so that's about the mindset. But then when we think about our skills, what sort of freelancer am I? And I think what I see evolving in the workings of freelancers is that traditionally freelancing was very much for I-shaped people with a very, very specific skill set. They did one thing all the time, and that's very prevalent in film and TV. So editors, directors of photography, makeup artists, they all have that one skill. They do that. They're always hired for that. But increasingly, I see lots of T-shaped people. People have depth of experience, but actually where they're brought in is because they bring teams together. They project manage. They make things happen. They enable things. And it's very easy to try and define ourselves by the I part of what we do, that functional, technical, practical thing, and not always realizing the value that T across the top brings, that collaboration, that ability to make things happen. So don't know, for some of you that might be more on the I shape, being much more on this XR boot camp, but understanding actually that ability to work with other people and bring that value in is really important. So when we're thinking about our skills, we can start by doing literally a skills audit, where we look at what are my hard skills, what are my soft skills, and what are my other skills. So my hard skills, my technical skills, all those things you're learning on the boot camp at the moment, what do they bring? What are those skills that you've got? Where are they now? Where are they going to get to? And then your soft skills. So what are those soft skills? And your soft skills are your interpersonal skills, your basic, being able to send an email, Microsoft Word, Excel, simple administrative type of tasks, team working skills, communication skills, all of those soft skills, they're valuable in any career that you do. The other place to think about your skills is your other skills. What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are your passions? What do you have a really deep knowledge about? And does that, you might not have considered that has any value for your work, but actually quite often when we're freelance, some of those early clients that we can find, they want our hard skills. Our soft skills help us communicate and engage with the client, but actually sometimes those other skills can help us find those matches. So sorry, I'm going to talk about film and TV a bit, but those are my examples that come to my head. But if I'm talking to film and TV students just graduating from university, might be 30 in the class, and they almost all identify as the same person because they've got the same degree. That's their hard skill, that degree. But actually, if one person's brilliant and loves gardening, another loves baking, another speaks 5 languages, and another one's passionate about medieval history, you can suddenly see how they can target the sort of clients they might want to work for through their other skills. So if you love gardening, talk to people who value who make gardening programs, need really beautiful gardens in their programming. If you speak 5 languages, talk to people doing travel programs or international co-productions. If you love baking, talk to cooking programs, history, documentaries, period dramas. So suddenly you can see, oh, actually, there's all that different content out there. My other skills have a value in that way. Does that exist in the work that you're trying to do? Those companies that need your coding skills, perhaps the fact that you have your other skills behind you might allow you to find opportunities and stand out and add value, because if you know about that subject matter, you can do a better job with the hard skills that you have. So how do we do a skills audit? We want to start with, where am I at now? What are the hard skills? What are the soft skills? What are the other skills? And literally write a list of all of those skills. Then we want to think about, where do I want to get to? And what are the hard skills I need? What are the soft skills? What are the other skills I need? And then we want to rate ourselves. How good am I where I'm at now and where I want to get to? And that's a really good start. It's very subjective though. So then we want to think about, actually, let's get some corroboration. So talking to your colleagues on this bootcamp, talking to trusted colleagues that you've maybe worked with before, talking to people, friends and family, ask for some corroboration about your skills audit. Because the one thing that I know for sure is that things we take for granted in ourselves are often the things people most value in us. And because we take them for granted in ourselves, we can't see them. So that's why that corroboration really works. That's how we really understand, where is it that I add value? What is it? What are the skills that I've got that are just so much part of me that I can't believe other people don't see the world in this way? And that's what we're trying to investigate and interrogate. And then from that, as we build up our skills audit, we can come up with an action plan, because actually what's going to make us better freelancers and have a better overall skill set is to improve the skills that we're not so good at. And unfortunately, those are often the things that we don't like doing quite so much. But we want to think about, how do we build those skills up? So doing that skills audit. And then we can ask ourselves, well, actually, what does success mean to me? What do I want? What am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? What does success mean to me? And it's much more than just the sum of our achievements. Success for me is about being able to, I'm not comparing I've sat in corporate jobs, I've sat next to people and chased that promotion and everything else. But actually, when I'm a freelancer, I can define success in any way that I want to define it. For me these days, it's about balancing work and life. It's about being able to take the kids to school. It's about being able to make my work fluid and flexible so that I can pick it up and put it down at times that suit me, that work for me. Now, obviously, I've got client commitments and I don't just go, oh, sorry, client, I fancy doing something else. But it's about knowing that, I'm not productive if someone tells me to sit at a desk Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, right, please work now. Alison. It doesn't work like that. I quite like getting up early in the mornings and managing my life. And then if I lose concentration in the middle of the day, maybe I'll go and do a few errands, tidy up something, do something else. So success for me is about making work for me in a way that makes my life work. And so once we started to think about our freelance mindset, what does success mean to me? What's our skills audit? We can write a list of, this is what I can do. These are all the things that I can offer to the marketplace. This is what I can do. And in a minute, we'll go on to finances, and then we'll come back to this marketing piece, and we'll start to translate that into an opportunity for clients. But I'll just pause for a minute and just see if there's any further questions from anybody here. Anything you're not sure about, anything you want clarification on, anything you want to observe. I can see lots of people writing furious notes here.
I was going to actually ask, in terms of like the hard skill and the soft skill balance, what's your advice? If you feel like you're an expert in the hard skills, how would you kind of advise for someone who may be kind of from both sides, actually, maybe great at the soft skills but needs more improvement in the hard skills, or maybe great at the hard skill but need more improvement in the soft skill? How would you advise for someone who wants to become a freelancer to develop in that, and especially as you're kind of essentially working with clients and can be quite daunting?
Yeah, I think for me that's about understanding, we're going to come on to this, why do clients work with me? Where do I add value? What's that place where I add the most value to my clients? So, that's almost like the difference between the I shape and the T shape. So the I shape person is that really, really technical person in a way. And then the T shape person is that enabler and that translator. So, I don't know the detail of the coding space that you're in, but I certainly know from the games industry that you've got the really hardcore coders, and then you've got much more the project managers, but you've still got to understand the code, and that's not where you're driven. So I guess my instinct would be to say, if you're really, really techy and that's the space you're really comfortable in, think about those roles where you're just doing that hard coding, but actually understanding the value that if you've got the soft skills and you can translate and enable that between the companies and the projects, then maybe you're less of a codey person, but you've got to understand it, and you're more that project manager producer. And maybe you're somebody who can build a team of coders and techie people so that you can bring that team to a project. So I'd be thinking about it like that, if you like. But also acknowledging that if one's much stronger than the other, when I'm doing my skills audit, really working on it improving the bit that I'm not so comfortable at. So, if I'm really good at the techie stuff, finding ways to develop my confidence with clients, my ways into that, my pitching, my presenting, things like that, because that's actually going to help me be a better freelancer than getting my coding much, much better. So just that's part of the point of the skills audit, if you like. Cool.
I don't think we have any questions for now.
Perfect. There we go. I'm back. Here we are. So next slide. That's the button. Got so many buttons in front of me. Got two computers and a device. I'm like, oh, which button is it now? So here we go. Finances. So we're looking at finances, and finance goes both ways. It's what I need to live on, but it's also this question that we're dancing around, what am I worth? So when we're thinking about what we need to live on, we want to start to look at, what is my individual living budget? You can do, there's a bit more detail on the next slide, but, what is my rent? What is my household costs? All of this. And we've got to remember that these household costs, this individual living budget is all about, is what we spend after tax. So if we were an employee, that's what we would be getting from the company. But now we're getting paid with the taxes. This is what we need to work out. We're working out here. We've got, this is what we need to earn. This is what we need to live after we've paid tax. So now we've got to work out how much do we need to earn, including all the tax. And HMRC has a ready reckoner where you can put in, if I need to earn £1,500 a month after tax, it will tell you what that needs to be, including the tax, because there's lots of different levels of taxes and it's quite a difficult calculation to work backwards. But what we're looking at is if we work out our individual living budget, that's what we need after tax. We work out what that includes with tax. That gives us a sense of what our annual turnover needs to be, the total of all the invoices that we need to send out to companies get paid over the course of the year to live the life that we want to lead. So when we're looking at that, and this informs what we need to charge, but it doesn't tell us our value, but it's a really good starting point. So when we think about it, we want to think about, well, okay, how much, we're going to literally go through how much my household costs, my mortgage or my rent, my council tax, utilities, what am I spending on transport, personal spending, and that's quite a hard one at the moment because life's been really turned upside down through the pandemic. So things that we might have spent a lot of money on before for personal use, we're not doing, and vice versa. So for me, like my grocery bill has gone up hugely. but I spent very little on entertainment because it's all been done in the house. I haven't been to the theatre or the cinema. I haven't been on days out with the family and anything like that. So that spending has changed. So I need to think about that now and go, okay, what does next year look like? Because if I look at what I spent last year, that's going to give me a different picture. What about my financial costs? Maybe I've got a pension, maybe I've got loans, maybe I've got a savings plan. What does that look like? Do I have other costs, medical costs, childcare costs, those kind of things? And importantly, when we're just starting out, there's this question of tools of the trade, which is actually, that question about the plumber coming to our house. Have I got all the tools? Because if we're going to start out as a freelancer, we need to make sure we've got those tools. So whatever it is for you, whether it's a computer, a broadband connection with the right speed, probably a mobile phone that's got decent battery so you can be out and about going to meetings, whatever, maybe some software, all those different things that you might need. Now, ultimately, they are the cost of running your business and they'll probably come under a business expense. But if we're just starting out, we might need to pay for them in this first year. So factoring that in, and we probably need to pay for those before we start getting money in from our clients. So that's why I put them in at this stage, just to ask the question, have I got everything I need to be able to launch my freelance career? Because that's really important. Now, it might be that you say, well, I can do this with I can use what I've got at the moment to do my first bit of clients, but over the year, I will need to upgrade. So just asking yourself that question is really important. And then when we're managing our money, we want to think about, okay, so we've got this money that we're invoicing that's coming in, and then we've got our personal spending. And actually, it's really good to separate those. So I like to have a business current account for all my day-to-day business transactions. So all the companies I invoice will pay my invoices into that business current account. Every time they pay an invoice, I'll put a percentage of that for tax money into a savings account. And then, so for my Zoom account for work, for my Microsoft 365 account, all of those things are paid for out of my business current account. If I buy some paper for the printer, that's a business expense that comes out of the business current account. If I buy, it can get confusing because I might buy things on Amazon and some of them might be for work and some of them might not. So I'll be really careful to pay for the things for work out of the business current account and the things for home out of my personal account. So I keep my personal spending and my business spending separate. So when somebody pays me an invoice, I might give myself a proportion of that as personal spending, or I might pay myself monthly, whichever it is. But that way, at the end of the year, the financial year, when we have to start doing our tax returns, then I've got all my business transactions in one place. And therefore, it's much more straightforward rather than going through my personal current account and going, was that receipt for personal or was that for business? And those kind of questions. So putting that all together, and there's a lot of fintech companies out there who are really supporting freelancers. So, for business bank accounts, you can look at the high street banks, but you've also got places like Monzo and Starling and Tide who run great freelancer accounts, and you can do those usually online without having to go into a branch. And also you've got companies like Coconut who run freelancer accounting software. It's about £3 a month or something. And that will give you a running tally of how much your tax liability is with every invoice that you send and receive the payment on. So you know that you've put the right amount of money to one side. So lots and lots of technology solutions to help freelancers these days, much more so than when I started out, where it was literally a big envelope of receipts and you had to type them all out into your spreadsheet and add them all up. So life has got a lot better for us as freelancers, but that's why if we keep everything organized into those separate accounts, technology does the hard work for us and just adds it all up. So it is absolutely a blessing, but it's worth getting set up right in the first place. So now let's look at our value, because that's a really important question in all of this. So it is starting from that question of what do I need to earn to live? So we've got that. So we've got a sense of, okay, so it's £1,500 a month or £2,000 a month, whatever it might be. Then actually what we want to think about is, well, I'm freelance, so I'm not going to get paid every day of the year. So how many days in a year am I likely to be paid for work. Well, let's think about this. There's 365 days in a year. So that's 52 weeks. We're not going to get paid for 365. We're not even going to get paid for 52 weeks because, let's face it, it's pretty quiet for 2 weeks at Christmas, a week at Easter, and let's give ourselves another week off just because. So that's 48 weeks in a year. But even then, probably not going to get paid for all of those 48 weeks. So I like to start with a rule of thumb of saying, well, actually, let's say I get paid for 50% of those days. So 24 weeks or 120 days. What would my rate? And then I can start to go, well, if I know what I need to live on, and I know that if I think I can get 120 paid days in a year, what does that make my daily rate or my weekly rate? How does that look to what I have? Maybe if I've got an idea of what my rate might be, if I've got an idea of my rate, I can divide that by what I need to live in a year, and I can say, well, how many days work do I need to get paid for in a year? That starts to give me a sense of what my targets are. How realistic is it? If it's up at 80-90% that I need to be paid after those 48 weeks, then we start to think, well, is this really going to work? Especially when I'm starting out, how much paid work am I going to get? Because if I'm going to go to a client meeting, that might be half a day when I'm going to meet somebody, that project could take 2 or 3 months to get off the ground. How much time is that going to take? And that client's not going to pay me until the project gets started. So that's what we need to factor in. So starting to think about those calculations, and it's absolutely, our value is based on our experience as well. So when we're just starting out, we might have one rate, but as I've already talked about, our rate will change, it will grow, it will develop. We'll also might have different rates for different sectors, different companies. So benchmarking, doing our research, looking out there. I don't know if there are unions or guilds or organizations that have any sense of what rates might look like in that space. Ian, I'm slightly looking to you because I don't know the XR coding space. Certainly film and TV has different kind of rate guidelines through back to the union of various places. But equally, we can look at shout outs, whether they're freelancer roles or permanent roles, and start to get a sense. But remembering, if we're looking at permanent roles, those companies that are hiring us will have extra national insurance costs and have to pay for all of our equipment and everything else. So there'll be costs on top of that. So we can start to benchmark and look around. You can start to benchmark and look around to see, well, actually, what are other people paying for somebody with my experience? What information can I get? And as I said, knowing that different sectors might pay different rates. I might charge a different rate to a charity, to a blue chip company. And equally, even within a company, I might have a different rate, because if I'm working in film and TV and a company wants to make a pilot, a sizzle tape, something like that they're investing in, they might say, well, we're investing our own money. We don't have a huge amount, but if we get the project away and we get funding for it, then we'll take you on for the project. So I might say, okay, I'll do this project at this rate on the basis that I get this other work with you, should it get going. And that can be a challenging conversation sometimes, because you've got to be aware of the company that doesn't win those pitches ever, but gets you in, or that gets you in to do those pitches but doesn't take you on. So you have to look out for things like that. But what you're seeing here is that there's different rates for different projects, and that's fine. You don't just have one rate necessarily. You can have a range of different rates. And then I love it when I'm pitching to a client and the sharp intake of breath. So I pitch to a client and they're really bought in, and Alison, you're fabulous, and this, that, and the other. And they say, well, okay, so how much is this going to cost? And when I pitch my price, if I don't hear a sharp intake of breath, I think, oh, I've underpriced myself. I've left money on the table. If the client goes, oh, yeah, that's fine, I'm like, oh, okay, there was a better deal to be done here. What could I do? So I learned to listen out for that sharp intake of breath. And I'm up for the negotiation. I'm up for the conversation. So learning to love that is exciting. And I know freelancers say to me, oh, but Alison, that just makes me think, oh, I've overpriced it. There's no deal to be done. No, it's the other way. They like what they've heard and it's just a bit stretchy, but we're a luxury item. We've got specialist skills. We should be charging a good price for what we do. So we want to learn to listen out for that and understand it. And also we want to understand, when we're thinking about our value, the relationship between price and demand. So you can see that graph there, and you can see price on the y-axis and demand across the x-axis. And what's interesting is that diagonal line is, if we think about that diagonal line as to our earnings, we earn the same along the line. So if we earn the same along the line, when the price is low, demand is high. When the price is high, demand is low. So we can use pricing to affect how busy we are. So if when we're starting out, we find suddenly we've got way too many clients, we've got way too much work, we don't have enough hours in the day, that shows that demand is high. Maybe our pricing is low. So if we actually put our prices up, we would earn the same along the line, but we would have less demand. So we'd have more capacity to do the work, and we'd earn the same amount of money. So we might lose a couple of clients, but actually we're earning the same amount of money. So we're in a better place. We maybe got some capacity back to look for some more work, to move that line out, to build it up, to earn more. So understanding that relationship, if we're really, really busy, that's a sign that we're not pricing high enough. So that question at the beginning about when we're starting out, we might take a while to get off the ground, but then suddenly people will hear that we're really good, it's all going well, and actually then that's when the demand starts coming in, and that's when we need to think, oh, do I need to put my prices up? And asking ourselves those sort of questions. But importantly, when we're thinking about our value, I've focused a lot on money here. I want to think about, actually, let's look at it from the client's perspective. What are the different ways that we're adding value to them? What is it in our work that we're doing? How are we adding value? Are we fulfilling a need for our client? So in film and TV production, company gets the green light. They're going to make their film. They need production team. They need crew. We're fulfilling a need. Those freelancers are fulfilling a need. Equally, we might be developing new opportunities for our clients. So if we've got creative or technical skills, so particularly for the work that you're doing, you're developing new opportunities for your clients, opening up new markets, opening up new opportunities. That adds value. That brings on potential of new sales, new clients, new customers. We might be working to help the client just increase current sales from existing marketplaces. So just really starting to ask ourselves, why am I adding value? What in the work that I do, what's it doing for my client? Maybe I'm just saving money on the bottom line. So if I'm doing something that delivers training in a new way, that saves 100 people from turning up in a hotel room to listen to a day's training and get a full day's wages, that actually they could do in an hour online, that could save money for the client. So understanding the different ways that we add value gets us to start thinking in terms of the impact that we deliver for our clients, because our clients aren't going to hire us as freelancers because they fancy giving to charity. They're going to do it because they've got a strategic need. They've got KPIs to hit, and our specialist skills, our freelancer skills are there to deliver that. So if we can explain what we do in terms of that value we can add for clients, we're changing the conversation away from much more than the price we charge. It's much less about trading time for money, but actually about the impact and the value that we add. And I challenge you to think about times when, have you ever closed a deal without talking about price? Because we can get really fixated on it. But I know that when I go to the supermarket, I'm always buying without looking at price. I don't go over my list. I only need these 10 items. And I come out with 12, 13, 14. Well, that looks nice. I fancy a bit of that. I'm buying without thinking about price. So it happens to us as freelancers when we can explain the value that we add to potential clients, becomes a no-brainer. They can understand what we can do for them, and price becomes much less of an issue. So before I move on to the final leg of the stool, I'll just open up and just say if there are any questions. I can see some things in the chat.
Someone asked, and Ngozi has asked, let's say a client wants someone who has more experience than what you do have under your belt, especially if you're fresh out of university. How do you convince that client as a new freelancer that you're just as good? And how do you communicate that into a proposal? Especially if they direct message you, but the job description says they want someone with more experience. Is it possible to counter check that with your profile?
So I think what we're really looking at here is why why do I add value? How can I add value? So, if it's very much the client is focusing on that amount of experience, if you really think you've got that experience, then that's about demonstrating that and explaining that in a different way. And that's where, particularly if it's a client where you understand the marketplace that they're in, and you can show that actually you're a really good fit because, they're working in, the fashion sector, and actually you've got previous experience in fashion or something like that. Actually, that adds a huge amount of value that maybe they hadn't considered. So you're really looking at trying to explain to them how, that it really goes back to that slide I just did, the different ways that you can add value, and thinking, well, actually, is this the compelling, what is the compelling reason as to why me? Why am I the right person? And we're going to move on to this a bit more when we start to look at that marketing piece, but it's trying to frame the conversation and explain the value that you bring, and trying to explain to the client where it's not just about how many years experience, but also being aware that maybe actually, is this the right client for you at this time as well? If they're very, very fixated on that, is that the right place to be starting to look for work as well?
Awesome. I have a quick question actually about overpricing and underpricing. You spoke about the gasp or that clients have, and it's quite difficult sometimes to be able to understand that. I remember there was one time when we kind of getting some a contract with a client for one of our boot camps, and I felt like I overpriced, but they were like, yeah, that's fine, and I was like, oh, I should have added a bit more. So how do you research into that? Because it's quite difficult, because you don't know what people charge. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is for freelancers on here as well. I know you mentioned about guilds and stuff in different industries. I don't believe there's one. Taran, please correct me if I'm wrong. But how do you kind of put your price onto your value beyond obviously what you can live on and what you think you can survive on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of the sharp intake of breath and that overpricing, some of that just comes through experience. So like, you've had that experience and you go, I won't do that again. I'm going to put my prices up and that kind of stuff. So, some of that is remembering that, acknowledging that, and saying, right, next time I'm going to charge more. And I've had that with clients, and I've gone, oh, no, next time. And then I'm quite brutal. Like, the next time I'll go, oh yeah, actually my rate's just gone up to this. And if they accept it that easily, they're usually quite good about that. So that's one part of it. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
The other question is, as new freelancers, how do you begin to start positioning yourself and pricing around like your skills, depending on what skills you have, and what are the best platforms to put yourself in to make sure that more people know about you?
Cool. I'm going to defer this to actually after the next bit of slides. So can we come back to that? Because we, as is always the way when I open up for questions, which I love doing, everyone's like, right, I want to know the next bit. So
question.
Go for it. Who's that?
Hi, it's Marika. Hi, Alison.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm really enjoying your presentation so far. It's amazing, and there's some really great content there. My question is about, because you really eloquently discussed about how you manage your money and how you sort of broke it into having a business account separate from your personal account. And what I'm seeing in the freelance world is there is this blurred margin between, are you a freelancer, are you an entrepreneur? And I think sometimes that meshes together, and sometimes it's quite very separate in terms of you may have a very specific contractor role. And so my question is, in terms of how you've shared about the tips on managing money, do you think it's useful to set up a limited company as a freelancer? And do you think managing the money and having a business account as a limited company and positioning yourself as a freelance business or a freelancer with a business is beneficial? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And to a certain extent, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not qualified to answer it, which I know is a bit of a cop-out. But, you know, it is about your personal circumstances and where your business is at and what that looks like. And the reason I defer it to an accountant as much as anything else is there's lots of tax changes that are going on. You might have heard about IR35, which is off payroll working. And that's very much aimed at contractors who operate through limited companies, sole directors of limited companies. And they are what's known as what the government described as disguised employment. So when you're a sole trader and you're a freelancer, IR35 doesn't apply to you. So I think it's about taking that advice and thinking, well, actually, what is the right thing for me? What works for me? Would I get caught by IR35? Is that an issue for some of the companies? Some companies in some sectors insist on people having limited companies. So I think there's some sector research around that. Talking to some accountants, maybe talking to other people who, you know, we're going to get on to sort of talking about mentors and stuff in a minute. So maybe that's a sort of like, you've got a mentor of somebody who's a bit ahead of you in the sector that you're going into. What are they looking at? Now, they're not going to give you professional financial advice, but they'll tell you what's working for them, and then you can balance that out with an accountant. But you know, it's quite a big question, and there are lots of different parts, but it's also very much about your setup as well.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Alison. Yeah, it is a big question. I just wondered what your stance would be on it. But I also find that within the creative and tech industry, which has been part of my journey, freelancing and contracting is very much part of that world. And as the world is evolving and becoming more digitized, it's becoming more increasingly moving that way. So I just wondered what would be the best thing. But I think you're right, having a mentor or something would be good.
But I think some of the stuff that people might have done through a limited company as a contractor is possibly quite likely to move over in some areas, particularly in smaller companies, to being those payroll fixed term contracts where you might have 6 or 12 months, but actually that's not about, you know, making yourself indispensable. It's about realizing that just project's going to come to an end and I have to think like a freelancer for the next step. So I think there'll be some places where that limited company status might actually end up being a fixed term payroll contract because people just don't want to deal with the IR35 issues. So I think the point is much more about the mindset, and that's what's going to make you a better freelancer, and knowing that you've got to build those, keep those networks going, keep hustling, keep looking for work, and understanding that, you know, even in film and TV, one job might be on the payroll, one job might be invoicing, just because of, like, if I'm transitioning between levels, like if I'm a researcher, then I'm on payroll. If I'm an associate producer or a producer, then I'm able to invoice. So I might jump between different projects and different grades as well. So those kind of things also chop and change. And I think we'll see that more and more in different sectors.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay. I have a quick question, actually, Alison. That was actually good. That was one of the questions I was going to ask later on. But one of my questions is, we within NEO, we're trying to set up an FDM model. I don't know if you know much about the FDM model, essentially where we some of our students who become consultants for companies whilst they're in a boot camp, or shortly within 3 months within being in a boot camp, and they will become freelancers, or they will become contractors for that short time. How does that, I don't know if you can have some advice for this. What does that look like from a business who has a group of freelancers that work in a company? How does our IR35 contribute to that? And is there any IR35 issues when it comes to that?
I am not qualified to talk about IR35 because it's it's about the hiring company. It's about your company structure. That's a real accounting question. I guess I was just coming at it more, I've seen these models like Sharp Futures up in Manchester runs a really nice model called People on Demand, where they have a kind of pool of 0 hours, people who've come through some of their training, and then you just pick them off and run like an agency kind of thing. But actually that technicalities on payrolls, IR35s is definitely something you need professional advice on. But there's certainly a model within that where you could run that, and that could be a great way for those initial projects and initial portfolios of people on the boot camps to get those first projects under their belt as those first freelancer projects. They've got the backing, and the client's got the comfort that Neo is behind them and supporting them in like an exec producer role. So they're doing the project on their own, but they're buying into the support that you give as part of that, and that sort of launches people. So that could be a really good way to certainly get around that first question that and goes ahead around, what does that look like? So, it might be the pitch then taking that model and goes, it might be the pitch that actually I'm part of the XR bootcamp, and what that comes with is, yes, I might be starting out. You might get me at a slightly lower rate, but actually I've got the infrastructure of Neo and that team behind me supporting me. So, I've got you helping me, and I've got these other people. So you've got those kind of ways to present it.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. I'm gonna move on to the other slide, the final bit of slides, because this is the bit that you are also all chomping at the bit at in terms of, this desires leg of the stool, this marketing leg. You are your brand. You've got to market yourself as desirable. We've got these specialist skills. We're doing all this training. We're very technical knowledge that there's not much of it out there in the marketplace. So what we want to think about is, yes, we need to be desirable. We've got to think about, how does our customer understand this customer focused thinking? So we want to start by unlocking our brand values. We're all really sophisticated consumers of brands. We know what we like, we know what we don't like. If I'm a freelancer, I'm my own brand. So how do people view me? Or what are my brand values? It's about the adding up together the values that I admire in other brands, the values that are important to me, and those values I believe a professional freelancer should adopt. If I put all of those together, I can come up with, a list of, half a dozen core words that really represent me as a brand. And that's not just a person doing this coding bootcamp. That's me as a brand. What do I stand for? What is it that makes brand me, brand Alison special? What is it that I do? And I can probably drill down into each of those half a dozen words that I've got there and write 2 or 3 paragraphs on what they mean to me. What do I stand for? And then once I understand that, I can then ask myself the question, well, okay, what do my ideal customers look like? Who are they? Where are they? What do they look like? So if I can envisage, okay, this is brand me. These are the skills I've got in my toolkit from my skills audit. Who are these people I really want to be working with? Are they clients that I just love what they do and I just want to be part of the action and be able to help them deliver that? Are they local? Are they just because they're local businesses? Who are these ideal customers? And then we want to ask ourselves as well, okay, who am I in competition with? Because actually I have direct competition, which are people who deliver the same services as me. But equally, I have indirect competition. And this became really apparent to me when I ran my motorbike training school, because on the one hand, we had this direct competition, all the other motorbike training schools that taught people how to ride a motorbike and get a bike license. But actually, we weren't really in some ways competing with them because we were the only people that specialized in teaching women, and we had a different approach and a different mindset to it. So what we realized was that we needed to focus our marketing less on the direct competition, but actually on the indirect competition, because actually most of the people we taught to ride a motorbike license didn't need one. They didn't need it for work. They weren't trying to deliver parcels, pizzas, packages, anything like that. They were looking at it maybe to get to and from work, to have some fun at the weekend. So they didn't need this motorbike license. It was a desirable item. And so actually what we were competing for was the money in there, was their disposable income that they could spend on a night out, on a weekend away, on a new outfit, all of those things. So when we understood that, we could start to target actually we were selling the dream of the open road, Audrey Hepburn, Roman holiday. We weren't saying, come and get your bike license. And so when we understood that, we could understand why clients were coming to us. They had that vision, that dream of the open road. So that's where we want to move our thinking, is why me? And actually, when we think about that, we want to think about the difference between what we talk about we do and why we do it. So when we talk about what we do, we're just giving people factual understanding. We're just trying to convince people based on facts. When we talk about why we do things, we differentiate ourselves. So exactly that with Girls Angels, we differentiated ourselves and we connect with the heart. So a really good example of this is the MP3 player, which is always sold on all the different features and benefits, what we do, all those different features and benefits. And every time a new one comes out with a new feature, that one goes to the top of the list and everything else goes down in price. Whereas Apple are the experts at connecting with the heart. They sell on the why. Why do you need an iPod? So you can have 1,000 songs in your pocket. So that connects with the heart. So if we can explain, not rather than thinking about what we do, but why we do it. Why do clients come to us? Why me? Then then we're opening the conversation, we're connecting with people. And that's about understanding that impact that we have and why do I add value? So that goes back into, that conversation, the Excel bootcamp and that recruitment model. Why do I add value? So, it's that package that brings to the client. You get somebody, you're working with somebody to help build their portfolio, get their careers off the ground, but actually in a supported way. So that adds value to the client. The client is doing, the client feels good about themselves because they're supporting somebody, getting them started on their journey. They know that this is an industry that's difficult. There aren't enough people. They need more skills. We need more talent. They want to support that. They want to grow new talent. And actually they get that added value because they're doing that and they're getting they're getting the work done that they need in a safe and secure way. So when we're thinking about our freelancing, we want to think about why me? How do I translate what I do into why me? And then we can start thinking about how we can go out and find these clients. And I think freelancing is really like dating, because when we go and meet a client for the first time, those first impressions really do count. We've got to walk into the room believing we bring utility. If we go on a date and we're not feeling good about ourselves, we don't believe we bring utility, and the date's usually pretty rubbish because we're not in a good place. So it's the same with freelancing. We've got to walk into the room believing we bring value. And also when we're freelancing, we're looking for those long-term relationships. We want to build relationships with our clients. We don't constantly want to be going on first dates. We want to build relationships. So that's part of it. So we're looking for clients who share our values. And for me, that courtship ritual is really important. Starting small, starting low key and building that trust, building that relationship. Do a little thing, see if it works. I don't know about you, but I've been on those first dates where it's all, it's roses and flower petals and, we're going to elope together. It's all going to be happy ever after. Never need to talk to anybody else. And then 3 months down the line, it's all the cracks are appearing and it's not working. And if I put all my eggs into that one client basket, I've got to start from scratch again. So starting low key, keeping lots of client relationships going, then we're not exposing ourselves and we're making sure that this is a client that not only works for both of us. And it's so important when we're freelancing to be someone people want to spend time with. Yes, we've got to be good at the work that we do, but actually what gets us asked back time and time again is being that good person to work with. So that's all great, Alison. You buy into why freelancing is like dating. How do I find these clients to go on dates with? And I think that's where it gets really exciting because actually we all know more people than we think we know. And this is put really well by the anthropologist Robin Dunbar. And they even coined a number after him, Dunbar's number, 150. And what he said is that we've all probably got about 150 people in our networks who, if we bumped into them unexpectedly, unannounced, in a cafe, in a bar, we'd know exactly who each other were out of context, and it wouldn't be an issue to sit down and have a catch up. So if I've got 150 people like that in my network, and you've all got 150 people like that in your network, that's 22,500 people, 150 times 150 people at one step removed. So that's an awful lot of people that are, not only have we got 150 people in our network, it's an awful lot of people not very far away. So the question becomes, well, okay, so if I've got all of these people quite close by, what role do they play in my network? So sponsors are my favorite people. So Taran's my sponsor today because he suggested me for this session to Oyen. So sponsors are people who are talking about you when you're not in the room. So Taran's talking to Oyen, so we should get Alison in. So sorry about that, guys. No, so sponsors are great people, and they need to know what we can do and why we do it, and that kind of thing. But they just go off on their own devices. Mentors are really important. I mentioned them already, but they can help us. They can potentially collaborate with us. They can introduce us to people, and they know how our marketplace is working, and they can help us on that journey. But that's not going to be that many people from our 150. So that's where people often draw a blank. Well, I don't know that many people. Well, you still know these 150. So let's say 100 people are what I would call introducers. They have people in their network. So if I've got 100 people in my network who are introducer roles, they've all got 150 people in their network. So if I spoke to all my 100 and each one of them said, oh, I've got 2 people in my network that you could be interesting for you to talk to. That's 200 people that you could go and talk to. And because those people are already in your network and really close to you, the chances are you'll get a meeting with their contact, with their connection. So that's how I look at growing networks, just thinking, who do I know? Talking to people, asking those questions. So even if I'm not very confident pitching cold to clients, I can go and talk to people I know. I can tell them I've done this boot camp and this is what I'm looking to do, and this is where I think I can add value, and this is why clients would hire me. And who might they know who I can talk to about this? And just if you're going to plan to put a spreadsheet or something together, just make sure you put a password on it for data protection. So we've got a vision. It's all great. You say, Alison, it's fantastic. I've got a clear vision of who I want to go on my client dates with. What on earth do I say to them? And for me, my great mentor, Mike Southern, taught me how to write a winning email. And it should take 15 seconds to read to win 15 minutes of somebody's time. Think about it. If you send me a really long email about all these questions that you might have about freelancing and this, that, and the other, I'm going to be like, oh, that's going to take me ages. I haven't got time to reply to that now. I will do, because it's really important that I reply. I just haven't got time to do it at the moment. And then I'll keep coming up with that. If you write me an email that takes me 15 seconds to read and I can just do a quick yes or no, you're going to get that reply much, much quicker. And we're looking for 15 minutes of somebody's time. So what are we looking for? A polite hello, a quick opener, and then we want to outline the problem or need we perceive the customer to have. And then the premise being, why me? Why am I the best at solving your problem? So we're already thinking in terms of the customer. What's the problem? What's the need that they have? Not what can we offer them, but what's the problem you perceive they're trying to solve? Why are we the best at solving it? And then proof. We want to prove that. But if we're being introduced by somebody from our network, that's all the proof we need. Because if I introduce one of you, somebody in my network, if I say, Alison, if I say to a colleague, oh, actually, you should really talk to Taran, you should really talk to Oyen, they're going to believe me, they're going to take that call because I am putting my network forward. So that proof, that introducer is really valuable. And then it's literally, how about we have a call for 15 minutes at this time? So that's what we're looking to do. Really simple, straightforward emails, really just getting on those conversations. So then we've written our winning email, we've got a call, now we need to prepare for it. So we need to research that person. What are the projects, the clients, what are those people in common? How can we solve their problem? Why me? We're looking for those questions all the way through. How do we talk their language? Making sure that we're really ready so that when we go on that first date, we've got our pitch ready. But equally, just like any good date, it's not all about us talking, it's about listening. What's important to the client? What's missing? What do they think they want to solve their problem? So thinking about those, because particularly in this tech space where the client doesn't really understand it, they might think that they need something else to solve their problem. So we might want to unpick that and help them understand how actually that I can see where you're coming from, but have you thought about it like this? Have you considered that? What happens if we start from this place? Because of the way I see it with my technical knowledge, might want to think about it like this. So we're just listening to hearing what their problems are, because we're looking to build a relationship for the future. So if we go back and go, oh, I wouldn't do it like that, how is that going to help us build that relationship for the future? We want to understand where they're at and help take them on their journey to using that technology that we know can add impact and deliver for them, because we want to be someone they want to work with. So if we can help them understand the journey that we're taking on, put a metaphorical around, lead them along that path, we're going to build that trust. And equally, at the same time, we're also listening out for buying signals. If they say to us, what are you doing next Thursday? We can stop selling and go, okay, let's get the diary out. What am I doing next Thursday? And do that. And I always conclude the meeting with actions, because what I want, if I'm a freelancer, go back right to the beginning. If I've got specialist skills, they're not going to know what needs to happen next. If I'm added capacity, they're not going to have time. So it's up to me to write that proposal and move the conversation forward. So we get the second date. And this is where on that second date, that second meeting, we want to sell them a little thing. We want to get started. So we've got to qualify. Do they need our services? Do they have a budget? And do they want our services now? And if the answer to all of those is yes, then we're going to pitch in with our price. So I'll do that for X. And we stop talking, because there's only 3 things they can say. So we need to stop talking and wait for their answer. They can say yes, they can say no, and they can say maybe at that point. If they say yes, that's great. Stop selling, shake hands, bump elbows, whatever. If they say no, then that's a bit odd. You brought me back for a second meeting. You want my services, you've got a budget, and you need them now. So what's the problem? And we're all going to get a lot of maybes along the way, and some will turn into yeses, some will turn into nos. And there are lots of professional maybe people out there. And we just have to work out how we move that forward so that, we get and know when to stop. So then we've got the second date. We're now going to get into that point where we're delivering a piece of work for the client. And we want to understand those clear communications for the client. How do they like, how often do they want us in contact? All of those questions. So for consultancy projects, I might talk to the client once a month. If I'm doing a film project, I'll be talking to them every hour. So understanding what's right, managing the client's expectations, and particularly making sure we measure our time. If we're doing project work, we make sure that if we've said we're going to do 10 days over 3 months, that's what we do. We don't do 20 days. We've halved our rate and we've lost 10 days where we could be looking for other work or doing other client work. So measuring our time. And some of that we might learn from experience, but actually we don't measure our time, we won't know to improve it going forward. And making sure we finish the job, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, all the paperwork, all of those things. And it's really tempting when we're starting out to over-deliver, give the client more than they expect. But either they're going to think we're making a mountain out of a molehill, or they're going to go, that's fantastic, Alison, do the same again for the money. So then we've lost out. So what I like to do is break things down into phases. So phase 1, I do, and then I go into meeting. We could do this bit next. We could do this bit next. So I'm selling whilst I'm delivering to the client. So if there's more that you can do, just do the bit that you've offered for the money, and then show them what the next step could be and the next step. And particularly if it's a new area for a client, we might deliberately break things down into phases to get a little thing off the ground, to build that trust, to build that relationship. And then when we finish the work, we want to make sure we invoice promptly and not be afraid to ask for feedback. Asking for feedback, because we can learn so much from our clients. And that doesn't mean tell me everything I've done wrong and and I'll be better next time as a freelancer. I like to do 3 stars and a wish, 3 things that went well on this project, what could be done better? And I'll ask that of the client and they'll ask that of me. So it's a 2-way street, but it opens up opportunities to really understand and get to know the client, deepens the relationship, and we can find ways to work with them further forward. So that sort of wraps up that desires piece of the stall. It would be remiss if we talked a bit already about the mechanics of freelancing. You will want to make sure you've got the right insurances in place, depending on what work you're doing. It might be public liability, might be professional indemnity. Having a look at that. Any legal terms and conditions, If you're creating any intellectual property, making sure you're covering those kind of things. Tax, as we talked about, there is a download on my website about that, that goes into how to operate as a sole trader with the tax returns and those kind of things. But really, just to sum up here, for me, great freelancers understand it all starts with why me? Why do I add value? And once we understand that, we can work out who are the customers that are going to value us. And that's all based on our skills. So guys, thank you so much. Gosh, I've talked lots. We've had lots of questions. And I am going to just move back to that one. So thank you. I hope that's helpful. I have not been following the chat at all. So please, Oyen, jump in with any questions that I've missed.
So Brenda's asked, how do we go about creating a contract? Brenda, I'm happy to help you with that. But Alison, if you have any feedback about that, that would be really helpful.
So as a freelancer, I don't tend to issue contracts to my clients who pay me. If I bring in a freelancer myself, I will do a contract with them. But what I do have is I have terms and conditions with my invoices and with my quotes that explain how I work and what those expectations are. So, and that's something that either a lawyer can draw up, or potentially some of the professional organizations, maybe like Federation of Small Businesses or IPSI, the Association, I can never say this right, and I work with them loads, Association for Independent Professionals and Self-Employed. Lots of them have, as part of their membership, some of those boilerplate type things. And those terms and conditions are the sort of things that 99% of the time just go with the invoice. You probably don't even look at them, but it's only when there's a problem with the project, with the client, that you need to go back to them, and whether that's about delivery or payment and things like that. So it's important to have. But if we're getting those out of the closet every 5 minutes, then we go, well, actually, is this client relationship really working? And certainly the times I've had to refer to them with clients are the times where I'm probably not going to work with that client again. So it's important to have. But I would be expecting clients to send me contracts, purchase orders, that kind of thing, because they are contracting me.
I mean, that's really good. I mean, what I would just quickly add to that is, for me, for how we do it at Neo, although we're not freelancers, we're a business, for like smaller contract or smaller, I guess, work or projects, and we just have T's and C's. But for really large contracts, that are in 6 figures, we would kind of have a proper contract in place. So a lot of times, if it's small, a lot of companies probably just don't want to be tied in a contract. They just want T's and C's. My last question, actually, just personally, for me, so if you start working with an organization on a freelance basis, and you kind of sign a T's and C's agreement, but then they came around and then asked that you should kind of do some extra work within that, but they're not willing to pay. However, but the contract is like too good to kind of say no to. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate that? Because oftentimes a lot of small businesses can do that to freelancers, where they get them to do work.
No, it's a really good question. And so that when I talked about, when you have that first date with a client and you look at those next steps and you're writing that proposal, see, that's one of the reasons why I always recommend a freelancer really owns that conversation and really starts to write down, what is this project about? What will I do? What does that look like? And so quite often I would draw something like that up as the next stage, and I would do that on spec as to, this is what we could do. So it's not about T's and C's. It's like, okay, what are those SMART targets? What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to measure it? How is it going to get achieved? All of that kind of thing. So it's like a project plan. So not only does that help me, so, the number of times I've done a project with somebody and it's kind of, we've had a really good meeting, I've written up the proposal, and it's taken me 2 months to get off the ground, by which stage I've forgotten the conversation. But because I've written the proposal with a plan of what I'm going to do, I can pick it up and I can just run with it straight away because all the information's there. And quite often that will get picked up as the scope of work in a client contract. But the point being, and I am getting to the answer to this question, is that if we own, like, this is the plan that we're going to do, then we've got a blueprint for the project. So I'll often try and have a kickoff meeting with the client. This is the brief. This is what we're doing. And then when they say, oh, could you just do this? I go, well, hang on a minute. This isn't in the plan, you know? Now I know this is what we're trying to achieve. Is there something from here that you don't want to do, or is this extra? But if we've got that watertight scope of this is what we're going to be doing, that gives us a place from which we can say, actually, no, that is project creep. That is not part of the spec. That is extra. And, you know, it comes up the whole time in film and TV, because you send a client a video to review and they go, particularly when, you know, we're working in a corporate sector, so we're working with a brand, so we send a client a video to review. Oh, that's lovely. Could you just change that bit? So you go, okay, great. We've had the feedback. You go, here you go. Oh, so-and-so's just looked at it and they don't like this bit now. And so how many times will you let them make changes? So then that's where I might be really watertight and go, okay, you can have 2 rounds of changes within these costings. Any further changes are at this point. And I might even say, you've got a week to give me this feedback and that kind of stuff, depending on the time scale of the project. So it's being quite watertight and having that sort of blueprint of what the project is, so everybody's clear. And there isn't, it's taking things out of that grey area is really important, so that you know what's assumed. And the thing is, anything that you leave in the grey area is just it's just likely to be the bits where there will be challenges. But that's why I always try and organise that project plan to try and mitigate that. Does that make sense, Liam?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. One of the things I would just like to add as well, if you know that a specific client is known for paying late and they're a big client, factor in the time that you have to wait for them to pay into your costs, because what you don't want is to have to kind of bear that cost on you, whilst you're waiting, especially if you're kind of delegating to other freelancers as well. So
absolutely. I mean, and it's not beyond the bounds to do like build in a cost for them paying late, but say, well, actually, I'll take 5% off if you pay the invoice on time. So you can give an early payment, a prompt payment discounts and things like that if they're really notorious, like public sector type of things and stuff like that. So I wonder who you're talking about there.
Well, we're probably talking about the same people. Absolutely amazing advice. Actually, I only heard that literally yesterday, so I think I was talking to someone about it. So I thought I'd share that.
Also, Taryn had a good question in the chat, which might be applicable and quite interesting. He asked what universal credit benefits are available for freelancers starting out that may not be earning enough yet. I thought that was quite interesting.
So the one thing with freelancing is you don't need to register until you know you're going to earn more than £1,000 in a year. So certainly if you're on universal credit and you're testing it out, until you've invoiced for £1,000, you don't really need to change anything. So that's part of it. Now, I don't know. Obviously, again, universal credit is a very individual thing. So I think you would have to look at how the credits work for you and that kind of thing to see what impact that has going forwards. And I know it can be slightly less straightforward if you're not on that regular income as well. But so I would look at that, but certainly you don't need to worry too much until you know you're earning more than £1,000. So certainly when you're first starting out, that can take a little bit of time as well. So Taryn, I hope that helps.
Definitely. I was just saying, because I've got a bit of experience on this, because when I first started out, I think in the first year, I think I earned about like 6,000 or something like that. And because I was married, had little kids, I was able to claim it was tax credits at the time. And so I was able, they actually topped up my earnings because they just worked out, okay, so you're below a certain wage. And then I got like a bit of extra. And so that can really help sometimes, because that got me through that kind of first and second year until I could build up those earnings. Yeah, so definitely look at that. The HMRC has a calculator on their website. So if you, and the other thing is when you're running when you're freelancer and you're running your own business, you can actually estimate how much you think you're going to earn. So I think in that first year, I think the first year when I was still like, it was kind of like minus or zero, I think it was. And then the second year kind of it jumped up, and then I was able to just go in and put the details in and work out how much I'd get. And then I would just update it. And then what they do is at the end of the year, they will work out how much you actually earned. And if you earned below what you thought you were going to earn, they just give you a lump sum and stuff like that. So universal credit can really help you. If you're single, it's probably a lot less. But yeah, definitely look at the calculations, because you'd be surprised at how much you can get, especially if you've got children as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I would also just add that talk to the job centre, talk to HMRC, but also what they're now that just dropped off my tongue, but there's an organisation that will help you look at your situation. It's really common name, and I've just completely blanked it. Taryn, do you know who I mean? It's independent of government and it's a charity, but they will ask the difficult questions and they won't just look at one answer. They'll look at you as a whole person, basically. What are they called?
I'm not sure. Is it Citizens Advice?
Yes, exactly. I knew it was something really obvious. Sorry. Yeah. So Citizens Advice will help you and look at the whole picture. Whereas if you've got like the one person at HMRC that just kind of understood your question but didn't completely, or the same at the job centre, they might sidetrack you. Whereas Citizens Advice will hopefully look at a whole picture and arm you with the conversations to have with the job centre, universal credit, and those kind of people, because not everybody in a job centre will understand the universal credit and self-employment and stuff like that. But Citizens Advice can really help on that basis.
Definitely. Well, like one of the things I did when I was unemployed, I didn't really want to keep going back to the job centre and kind of having to kind of prove to them that I'm looking for work. But really, I was developing my own projects. So what I did was I did register as self-employed, and they stopped hassling me, which meant I could just focus on my business. And so yeah, there are always different, and it was much better, because rather than having to apply for jobs where I really had no interest in doing those jobs, it was I could still get my benefits through tax credits, but then I was just developing my business really.
That's really good advice. So I think just looking at the whole picture, trying to get a full picture of information about that, rather than just one person's piece of advice, because the job centres and those are really focused on getting people into jobs, and they're not going to understand that self-employment and the way that this industry kind of works in so much detail.
I think as well, if you've got a limited company, then you're not technically self-employed. You actually work for the limited company. So when you're starting off, when you're kind of going to the universal credit, don't say that you're self-employed. If you've got a limited company, just say, well, I've got a job, this is how much I earn, and then you will get universal credit according to that, because you are a separate entity to your limited company, which is kind of like an advantage of it as well. And I've got some experience of IR35 as well that Alison was talking about. The HMRC was like, there were some unscrupulous people who were like, abusing the system, like by either, freelancing as a limited company and not paying any tax and expensing everything. But then there were other employers who were taking advantage of workers by putting them down on 0-hour contracts and saying that they're self-employed, and then, not giving them the benefits that they should have been. So for that reason, but you can usually kind of learn about that. You can go online. The government has a website all about IR35. But if you've got a limited company and you've got varied clients, you're usually going to be okay. I think the problem comes when you've only got like one client and you're continuously working for them as if you're an employee.
The challenge, Taryn, with some of that is that the bigger publicly funded bodies, particularly like universities and things, have a bit of a blanket IR35 terrifies us, please go away kind of thing. So it really is about who are your clients. If it's a company if most of your clients have less than 50 employees, IR35 doesn't even apply, but so it's a horrible place, and everybody's really scared at the moment, and so they're making really risk-averse decisions, and I think that's part of the challenge. So if you are both as self-employed and as a limited company, it's worth understanding a little bit about it so that you can fight back, because I'm constantly having this conversation because I operate through a limited company. I am outside IR35. There are 2 directors of the company. I work for 55 million different people. Yes, I'll fill in your very long, boring form. So it's things like that.
Thank you so much, Alison. Honestly, it's been so valuable today. Ladies, please go and get the Freelance Bible. If you've enjoyed today's session, you can find it on Amazon. I've just looked, it's actually about £7.54 or something. Get yourself a copy if you just want to kind of read more into this freelance life. Thank you again once more, Alison. Can we just make her feel welcome? Can we just send her some love in the chat, give us some emojis so she can feel welcome to our community? Yes, so thank you again. And it was an absolute awesome session. And hopefully we'll have you back again for something else.
I would love to. Thanks, guys, so much for having me. It's lovely to meet you all. Lovely to see you, Tara, and lovely to see you, Oyen. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. All right.